Hi, I'm Mrs. Hicks, and I want to talk to you about wearing your seatbelt. Let's look at a video that shows a crash test with and without seatbelts. The speed of this car is 40 kilometers per hour, or for us Americans, 25 miles per hour. Watch what happens, even to the person in the back seat. And this is the ones wearing the seatbelt. This is at 25 miles per hour. According to the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, if you ride in the backseat of a car and you're not wearing a seatbelt, you are 8 times more likely to be injured or killed in a collision than if you were wearing a seatbelt. Also, the driver is 60% more likely to be injured or killed if the person riding directly behind them is not wearing a seatbelt.
It's a habit for most of us to buckle up while we're driving. But what about when we ride in the rear seat of someone else's car or use Uber or Lyft? The Institute survey found that full-time belt use is lower in the rear seat, and that's especially true for people who primarily get around by taxi or ride-hailing service. Less than 60% of people who said they frequently take taxis or use ride-hailing services said they always wear their belt. People who reported buckling up less often were asked for their reasons. A quarter of respondents said they believe the rear seat is safer, so using a belt there is unnecessary. If you're not belted in the rear, you're putting yourself at risk, and you're also putting other people in the vehicle at risk. People belted in the front seat can be injured or killed by unbelted occupants in the rear flying forward in a crash. We recently conducted a test to show what can happen when there's a crash and the person in the back is unbuckled. In a simulated 35-mile-per-hour impact, the unbelted dummy slams into the back of the driver's seat, pushing the driver dummy into the deploying airbag and steering wheel. Drivers are twice as likely to be killed in crashes when the occupant behind them is unrestrained. All but one state requires adult front seat occupants to use safety belts, but rear seat passengers are covered by laws in only 29 states and DC. Only 20 have primary enforcement, which means a police officer can stop the motorist for the seatbelt violation alone. Stronger laws would help, but technology could also boost belt use. Studies show that persistent belt reminders are effective at getting front seat occupants to buckle up. These systems are common for the front seat of new vehicles, but few vehicles sold in the US have belt reminder systems for the rear seat. Although safety belts are proven to save lives, more than half of the people who die in passenger vehicle crashes in the US are unbelted.
So we see how important it is to wear safety belts in the back seat while we are in the back seat, also the front seat. But it's also important to know how to properly wear a seatbelt. So let's make sure we all know that.
We all know how important it is to wear our seatbelt. It's also really important to make sure we're wearing it properly. When putting it on, make sure that there's no twists in the belt. And once clicked in, low across your hips, pull the slap out so that's already nice and tight, and make sure it's sitting up across your collarbone.
Students often ask me why I end each class with what has become my catchphrase: stay safe, make wise choices, and always wear your seatbelt. Well, I've attended too many funerals of people under the age of 21 that were killed in car wrecks just because they were not wearing a seatbelt. We all see the videos like the ones I've shown here. We all hear the news stories, but yet we think it can't happen to us. It can't happen to our family and friends. Well, the next video I'm going to show is about my goddaughter, Micaiah, and we call her KK. The video was made for a contest for distracted driving, but it could also be a video for not wearing a seatbelt because Micaiah was in the back seat lying down, sleeping with a blanket over her when her friend ran off the road and they rolled the vehicle. Kaya was thrown through the back window, and the car behind her, the direct quote in the police report was she flew higher than the electric pole, then landed right in the middle of the road with a crashing thud. We thought she was dead. The video is going to show you the pictures of the car and a screenshot of her in the hospital. Micaiah spent 13 days in the ICU where her family and friends had no clue if she would make it, and if she did live, what type of permanent damage would be done. When they reduced the medication that was keeping her comatose, KK woke up on the 13th day. She woke up to what the doctors call a blank slate. She didn't recognize anybody. She didn't speak. She couldn't walk. She could move her feet and hands, but there was like no personality there, just blank stares. She spent 10 more days in the step down ICU unit where family spent was with her 24 hours a day. She was then sent to the Shepherd Center in Atlanta, Georgia with her mom. She stayed there for 60 days, learning how to talk, walk, feed herself, and other basic needs. Her memory did return slowly over time. She stayed in Atlanta for 60 days. She was able to return back to her home 83 days after the accident. But for another 6 months, she had to continue physical therapy and occupational therapy. She made a full recovery, and her doctors consider her a miracle. Micaiah now works full time and is a mom, just celebrated her first Mother's Day with her daughter, Evie. The last thing I wanted to talk with you about is what happens when you're wearing your seatbelt, but your seat is reclined.
Seats are leaving passengers severely injured or dead in accidents that should have been survivable. 12 years ago, federal regulators agreed that most people who ride with the seat back reclined are in life-threatening danger, but little has been done to warn the public.
There's very little. For us, there's nothing I can do for myself. Nothing.
Mary Kay Lupo became a crash test dummy in an accident danger long known to automakers. The crash in 1991 left Lupo paralyzed from the shoulders down.
We were hurting a lot. It seemed like everything hurt.
Lupo is one of an untold number of victims maimed, paralyzed, or killed while riding in a reclined seat. In crash tests conducted 20 years before Lupo's accident, General Motors engineers demonstrated the danger of riding in a reclined seat. Crash dummies slid under the seatbelt in an effect called submarining and were literally strangled.
There's a significant risk of them being killed because this is a very dangerous way to ride.
Steve Sison is a former GM crash test engineer. The driver in this wreck was uninjured. His 64-year-old wife was asleep and buckled up in the reclined passenger seat.
She tipped forward and she contacted the shoulder belt with her neck, and the shoulder belt basically broke her neck.
I would never imagine somebody was killed in here. There's no damage in here. There's no intrusion into the compartment. Yet she's dead.
She's dead, and this is not unusual.
In a similar manner, Mary Kay Lupo suffered a burn mark across her neck and throat from being choked by the seatbelt. Well, you're one of the few survivors.
That's what I'm told. I have never found somebody else like me.
It doesn't matter if you're in a frontal accident, a rear accident, or a rollover, the effect is the same. Your seatbelt will not work, and you will more than likely die.
Dallas attorney Todd Tracy represents the family of Marine Sergeant William Lowry, who was killed last December in a rollover accident. Lowry slid out of the seatbelt of his reclined passenger seat. He was ejected from this 2002 Venture minivan built by GM. In this memo written 30 years before Lowry's death, GM engineers had recommended a reclining seat limitation, stating, "The fact that our competitors market reclining seats with adjustments greater than 20 degrees does not justify our doing so."
He was only 26 years old. They've known about this accident longer than he was alive. They basically killed him before he was born.
I saw a commercial a couple of months ago that really upset me.
What did people see in the new Chrysler Pacifica? I see a woman who knows how to relax.
All the kids went, Mom, that lady's gonna die.
Lupo's teenage twins don't remember a mom that walked. They escaped uninjured from the same accident. Mary Kay Lupo remains angry at automakers who market luxury reclining seats that put her in a $40,000 wheelchair for the rest of her life. Lupo settled a lawsuit against GM. The company did not respond to our request for an interview. Automakers have opted to put a danger warning in the owner's manual. In defending lawsuits, automakers have argued that it's common sense that reclined seats should only be used when the vehicle is parked. Lupo doesn't believe anything more will be done until someone famous dies riding in a reclined seat. Tracy.
Okay.
So I hope that you've learned something today, that wear your seatbelt, whether you're in the front or the back seat. Do not recline your seat more than 20%. And a lot can happen in a second. Remember, stay safe, make wise choices, and always wear your seatbelt.